important. It's one of those formulas that I do have memorized. I don't have everything memorized because I do have that feeling that like I can look stuff up, right? So I do have that belief deep down within. So I don't always have every single formula memorized, but this is one that we use so much and in so many different cases that I definitely make sure I have it memorized. So here is our quadratic formula. The way that we get the quadratic formula, you see how we start here with the general form? If you complete the square on this with these letters, you go through the process of completing the square, you get this as your result. So that's where it comes from. Completing the square helps us get to the quadratic formula. And then we just use this every single time because it solves for x, and that's really nice for us because it helps us get where we want faster. Then there's just a piece of it that we want to talk about. So specifically this piece that lives right there, not even the square root, just the b squared minus 4ac is my discriminant. If that value is bigger than 0, we're going to get 2 real solutions. If that value is 0, we're going to get 1 real solution. And if it's less than 0, I don't love this. I would rather have you say, let's not say this. We're fancier than that. We're going to say 2 complex solutions. And that means imaginary. Not complex like complicated, complex like it has an imaginary number in it. So then the equation has 2 complex solutions. So please put that. We're smarter than no real solutions. Like we've moved past those days. So I would like you to write that. So what's under the root really drives the type of answers you're going to get. So again, if it's something positive, we can square root it. If it's 0, what's the square root of 0? 0. So would it matter if I added or subtracted 0? Not going to do a thing. If it's negative, that's when we get the i's. So do you see how that really drives it? Like where my solutions are going to be, what they're going to be? Okay. Here we go. Let's do part B and C. I don't know where A went. It's a mystery. Okay. Let's use the quadratic formula it asks me to solve. So make sure you read your directions and do what it asks you to do. Some are going to ask you to find the discriminant and the number and type of solution. Some are going to ask you to solve. These are both please solve me type of questions. All right, let's start with B. Again, A is mysteriously missing. All right. A is 4. B is 12. C is 9. That's my first step always. So remember you have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 when you're in standard form. So the a is the coefficient in front of x squared, the b is the coefficient in front of x, and then the c is your constant. It's your standalone term that's hanging out here at the x. We're going to use our quadratic formula. I'm going to rewrite it out. And this is a good way to memorize it. So if you are a friend who still doesn't have this memorized, no big deal. One thing you could do when you do the homework tonight is you could write it before every problem. And the more you write it, the more it's going to get stuck up here. Is it going to take you 2 extra minutes to do your homework? Yep. But are you going to have the formula memorized? Also yes. So that would be my recommendation. Alright, I'm going to start plugging stuff in. I'm going to plug in my 12. So this is the opposite of 12. So it becomes negative 12. Plus minus the square root of b squared. What do we know 12 squared is? 144 minus 4 times a times b. That's more than I want to do in my head right now, so I'm just going to leave that like that. All over 2 times a. So 2 times 4 is 8. Now typically when I'm doing these problems, my next step is to simplify whatever is left under the root. So at this point, I'm going to leave my negative 12, I'm going to leave the plus minus, I'm going to leave the 8, I'm even going to leave the root, but I'm going to condense that down, what's under it, to a single number. So I've got 144 minus 4 times 4 times 9. Ooh, did we all get 0? Boy, I typed that in right. I'm getting 0. So, if I get 0, does adding or subtracting 0, we just talked about this, does that do anything? No. So I just have negative 12 over 8. Can I reduce that? Yeah. So it reduces to what? It reduces to negative 3 over 2. Yes. And again, we would rather have improper fractions here again. That's what we're going to hope for. Okay, so that one came out with one solution. And we could tell, right, because it had 0 as a discriminant. So all this stuff kind of like works and plays together. C. What's my A? What's my B? What's my C? 2. Okay, so we're going to plug in. Again, same formula. If you don't have it memorized, again, I would write it first every single time. Opposite of B, plus minus. Square root. B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2 times A. Alright. What happens under my root this time? What do I get when I simplify that? So this will be negative 8, and so it'll be negative 4 overall. Okay, reach back into your memory banks. What do we know the square root of negative 4 is? 2i. Nice. And you always need to simplify. So can I divide everything by the same number? What number? 2. So this can become a 1, and a 1. If you have a 1 in your denominator, you don't need your fraction anymore. We just have negative 1 plus minus 1i. And that's it. We don't need our 1 in the denominator. I'm guessing the mysteriously missing part A was probably an example where it came out as like a nice number and we had 2 real solutions. So that can happen as well. I know you've encountered those in the past. You would simplify down as much as you can, just like we did here. Are we good with quadratic formula? Do you remember that, friends, from the days of yore? Okay, split. We only have one more thing I'm going to show you today. That's the discriminant. And then tomorrow is our last day on 1-5, and we're going to talk about some different solving. Solving with roots, solving when we have fractions. I feel like there's some rational exponents, yep. And an absolute value just for fun. So we're going to get some of those like leftovers that don't fit with the other stuff we've done so far. Okay, discriminant. The discriminant is just b squared minus 4ac. Not even the square root, just b squared minus 4ac. Oh, part A is there this time. Yay! A is 1, B is 4, C is negative 1. B squared minus 4 times A times B. By the way, does anybody know why I put parentheses around my 4? Yes. So remember on your calculator, because a lot of us kind of use our calculator as our security blanket, right? Like we just, easier to just plug it in. The problem becomes, if this had been a negative number, we wouldn't get the right answer. And we'll see that on the next one. I'll show you with and without parentheses. So just a friendly reminder of how much parentheses affect things. Okay, 4 parentheses, square it. Arrow to the right. Minus 4 times 1 times negative 1. I get positive 20. How many solutions? 2, and what type? Okay. So make sure you use both of those descriptor words for me. Use how many and what type. So 2 and they're real. I need both of those components in the answer. Part B, what's my A? What's my B? What's my C? 9. B squared, again, I just always put it in parentheses because otherwise if I don't do it every single time, sometimes I forget when I really do need them. Minus 4 times A times C. Okay, watch the difference of what happens. If I don't use parentheses, this is my answer. If I do use parentheses and I square the whole thing, including the negative, which is what I'm supposed to do, I get 0. Those are very different answers. So what your calculator does with this one is it squares the 12 and then it reattaches the negative sign. So it doesn't square the whole thing. Your calculator's like, oh, I'm just going to square this 12. That's 144. Reattaches the negative, makes it negative 144 minus another 144. That's how it gets to that negative 288 number. So again, make sure you always use parentheses. It's just a good habit to get into, I think. How many solutions? What type? 1 real solution. And then tomorrow, so that's actually it for today. Tomorrow is like the island of misfit toys. Like it's just all these other kind of random solving ones that we haven't talked about so far. So today is just quadratic formula, just discriminant. Read the question, make sure you know if you're finding the discriminant or the quadratic formula. Oh, you should finish this before you leave and maybe have a couple minutes to tell a friend how much you love math. Yeah. Assignment 9, page 55. Numbers 63 to 68 and 79 to 81. So that is not much homework. That is all.